Welcome to the LERN webinar regarding how to get the most out of your LERN membership. Our presenter today is Brendan Marcello, and Brendan is the Director of Member Support Services. All of our LERN webinars are recorded, and we will be sending you a link to the PowerPoint slides as well as the archived presentation by email once we conclude today. You'll also find a link to the slides in the chat box within the webinar in case you'd like to open them on your own screen. We'd like you to ask any questions that come to mind, and we ask that you keep them till Brendan is complete with his presentation, and then we'll read your questions and answer them all for you. So if you're ready, Brendan, let's get started.
Thank you very much, Tammy, and welcome everybody to how to get the most out of your LERN membership. So we are going to go over this agenda here, basically go down the line on a lot of our LERN member services that we provide. Most of these free to LERN members, if not at a discounted cost. And so we're going to kind of go through each one and just give you an idea of what it's about. Like Tammy said, feel free to type questions in the question panel, and we'll go over them at the end. But if you have any really specific questions that you want to get into depth about, we're going to talk about further on in the presentation, but you can submit those to info@learn.org, and we can be sure to set up a phone call or anything to discuss any questions you might have or ways to make any of these member services work for you, because that's what it's here to do, hopefully to help you guys out and make our LERN membership as valuable as possible to you. So I won't read down these, but we're going to go through them now. So first off, without further ado, this is sort of our core membership team here with some support from several other people, but Julie Coates is our Senior Vice President for LERN Information Services and oversees the membership team. She's done extensive research on a lot of aspects of continuing education and programming and brochures and everything. So she does a lot of writing for us and keeps us in line. And so Katie Lynch-Morin is the Director of Communications. She does a lot of writing for us and works with members on social media and digital marketing and and print marketing as well, and just some general marketing stuff. And she does a lot of writing for us as well. Tammy, as you just heard from, Tammy Peterson is our Director of Customer Service and sort of our customer service guru. And if you call us or contact info@learn.org, you'll get Tammy, and she's happy to move any questions she has to the appropriate person, or also handle any of your issues with membership, with renewal, with updating your rosters, and any stuff like that. And my name is Brendan, and I work a lot with members on print brochures and with members' data and answering member questions and setting people up with consulting calls and hours. And we'll go over that in a bit, but that's sort of our team, and we're all here to help you. And so you can contact us and ask any questions you'd like. But we're going to run through some member services here. The first of which is the brochure critique. And as a LERN member, you're entitled to a brochure critique every year. And the way it works is we have you send in your print brochure by mail to our office. And you can also send in a digital copy as well. We prefer to do it from both because some of what we critique is the physical dimensions of the brochure and the materials and whatnot. But if you need something done just from a digital file, maybe you haven't printed it yet, maybe you just don't have the time, you need to rush something, we can definitely do it from a digital file, but we prefer to do it from the actual thing, the piece that the student or consumer will see. And the way it works is, in order to do this, just like we're going to be, I'm saying this probably a million times today, but to request this service, you're going to email info@learn.org, and Tammy will give you directions and an address to send the brochure to. But what we do is we give you back a report that's typically 15 to 20 pages long and consists of both recommendations that are specific to your particular brochure, but also a lot of best practices in general that are industry-wide or constituency specific, since we serve several different types of programs, parks and recs, community colleges, community ed, all sorts of different programs. So we make recommendations that fit your own constituency as well. Just as a quick breakdown, what we sort of look at in the brochure is we sort of break it down into 5 categories. We're looking at your cover and how well the images work and how it projects your program's identity and the copy on the cover. We're looking at those first few pages in your brochures. Depends on, different brochures have a different number of welcome pages, but we're looking at those to see if they are, welcoming to the student, and they get across what, the type of programming you're offering, and are enticing enough for your readers. And then we also go into the interior pages, how the classes are listed, how they're organized, how the individual classes are presented with the titles, the descriptions, and the logistical information. And we also talk about the visuals within the brochure, images, and any sort of graphics being used. We also go over the registration page for ease of use, the way it's laid out, if it's easy to understand, if it's written in the language that speaks best to the reader. And if you've included, all the policies that are necessary to have back there for a reader to make an informed decision about registration. We also look at the back cover, which is also a very important part of the brochure, because who knows which direction it will be facing up when it gets delivered. So we like to talk to members about their back covers, how it looks, what you're trying to sell with that back cover, and how it fits in with the general look and feel of your brochure as a whole. So like we said, if you want to request this member service, which is every member is entitled to this once a year, you can request that at info@learn.org, and we'll give you the directions on how to make it happen. The next service we have that's free to members is the website critique, similar in many ways to the brochure critique, but essentially we're comparing, this one's a little easier. All you have to do is submit your URL to info@learn.org. And Katie Lynch-Warren performs this analysis. And basically, we're looking at how your website's look, feel, and ease of use sort of stacks up to others in the industry. And we're analyzing things like how easy it is to find a course, how easy it to go from, if you found a course in the brochure, to find it again on the website where you can register for it, how easy it is to find a course organically on the website, based on what the topic is you're looking for. How easy is it to register, going from the point of getting to your home page to the point of where you're actually signing up for a class? How easy is that, and how many are there any roadblocks to that process? How does the overall look and feel? How is there consistency between your website and your brochure and any other social media stuff you're doing? How's that message consistently branded across all your formats? Is it going after the audience you want, and we're using the best practices for engagement that we've developed, and then also some digital marketing best practices involved in there as well. And so basically you submit that, Katie takes a look at the website, compares it to some of our best practices, and we get back a report, just sort of like the brochure critique, that has some general best practices as well as specific recommendations for your website. And that also is free, and you request it through info@learn.org. And just I'll do a couple quick side notes as we go here, some member success stories. And this is a member of ours, the Santa Barbara Center for Lifelong Learning, Santa Barbara. And they went through a process where they were creating a new website and doing sort of a rebranding campaign. So they reached out to us, and we did both a website analysis and a new service we're offering, a social media and digital marketing analysis, which is a premium service, but it is discounted for members, in which we look at your your social media accounts and your digital marketing efforts, and we sort of give some input on that. So we did both of those for Santa Barbara, and through the suggestions, they made some changes to their website's usability, to the way it looks, and to the sort of the way things are ordered on the website and whatnot. And as a result of that, they were able to make significant gains in both organic website traffic, an increase in social media and email marketing engagement, as well as they made some tweaks to the website based on recommendations that increased those aspects. So they found it to be very positive, and have given a lot of good feedback on the critique. So it worked for them. So if if anyone wants to reach out and try it for themselves, as a member, you're entitled to that. So please do. The next thing we're going to talk about is the market segmentation report, and this is a data analysis, which is a little more in depth. So we'll take a few slides to go through this. But essentially, the way what we're trying to do here is let us help you get the most out of your data. So most programs collect a lot of data on their registrations, their students, and whatnot. And a lot of times it goes unused or unanalyzed. So we've created a tool and a process to sort of go a level or two deeper than what a typical online registration system will allow for analysis. So we can take that data from your system, run it through this tool, and come up with a different sort of unique way to look at your data that you can make informed, data-driven decisions with for decisions going forward. So this report, essentially, you're submitting to us, and there's a slide later that I'll show you sort of what we need from you. But essentially, you're submitting to us your registration data for a given period of time. We usually recommend about 2 years. So you submit to us this data, we reformat it and run it through a tool we've developed over time, and we can come up with these various metrics down below here. So the report comes back to you with a category, subcategory, or course report, a demographics report, a carrier route report. We can identify your repeat rate and your lifetime customer value. We identify your 7 primary market segments. We have a thing called a next course report, which I'll get into, and then we can also create a best customer list for you. So I'm going to get into each of these sections a little bit here, but that's essentially what the all-inclusive report comes back to you as. And if for some reason there's certain aspects of types of data that you aren't collecting that is necessary for parts of these reports, we can always run with what you have and give you back a partial report that may not include all these sections, but we'll get back to you as much as we possibly can based on the data that you collect. So the category, subcategory class report is basically taking your data and breaking it down by those category, subcategory, and classes. And you can look at, basically, we're breaking it down by both registrations and revenue. So you can take a look at all your categories and see, in one place and see which ones are generating, what percentage of your registrations and how many registrations. Also, what percentage of your revenue and how much money is coming in from those categories. So you can sort of get a visual, really visualize what are your best categories, though it's pretty clear to most people what their best categories are, but sometimes it can be a little eye-opening to see that maybe things don't line up exactly as you visualize them lining up. But it's a good way to sort of take a step back and look at the big picture, at the categories, see where maybe you want to focus your efforts going forward, or what needs a little boost and whatnot. We can also do that for subcategories as well. We can look at which subcategories you're most productive and which might need a little help. And then we can also do it for classes. And when we talk about classes, if you, let's say you've offered, during this 2-year period of data, you've offered ballroom dancing 5 times. We look at each class, class or course in its entirety, meaning that we'll look at, all the ballroom classes together, all the various other classes together, so we can see over that period of time how well that class has performed. Even though it's run 5 times, we can see how it's performed against the other classes that you've run over that time period as well. So we bring back those 3 reports to you. One thing that I always notice when running this data is we at LERN sort of preach this rule called the 80-20 rule, which really holds true with a lot of these aspects to this report, where generally 20% of your customers generate 80% of your business, and in the same breath, it's generally 20% of your categories generate 80% of your registrations, 20% of your subcategories, 20% of your classes all are responsible generally for, roughly 80% of your business. And this holds pretty true. I mean, maybe 80-20 isn't exactly what it is, but it can be, 30% generate 80%, that sort of thing. But there's always a few that generate a lot. So it's always good to know those and have them identified, and we're here to help with that. And you can make a lot of decisions based on that and make informed programming decisions going forward. So the next aspect is the demographics report, and we can run this report for any sort of demographics that you collect when students register. From what we see, the most common being generally birth date or birth year, as well as gender. And those can, you can make a lot of interesting decisions based on that, as far as how you want to market yourself going forward, who your typical customer is, and who you want to, really appeal to. So what we do is we take, with gender, we'll just bring income and registrations by gender. You can see, see how that breaks down. with birth year and birth date, we group it into generations like Gen X, Gen Y, baby boomers, as you can see with the that little chart there. And we'll show you how much income came from each generation and how many registrations, and then sort of the percentage of the whole there. So you can see who your who your most popular customers are. And it's interesting as one of the values to these reports are to be doing it yearly, and then you can take a look year to year and you can see, well, are we increasing the number of Gen X, Gen Yers while decreasing baby boomers, or like what is increasing, what is decreasing? Maybe last year we really tried to target Gen Xers, and did that work? Are we seeing more registrations from Generation X? So the more you run these reports, the more you can compare them to each other and see how things are going forward. But if you collect something like education level, if you're doing more continuing professional ed, and you're collecting job types or job titles or anything like that, anything you collect like that, we can segment by and take a look at registrations and income from those demographic profiles. So this sort of is a customizable section depending on what you collect. So that can be very helpful. We also do what's called the carrier route report, and we could probably do a full webinar on carrier routes. So we're not going to get too in depth into how they work right now, but essentially a carrier route, if you don't know, is it's smaller than a zip code. So basically, a lot of programs will saturate an entire zip code or an entire town or whatnot with brochures in order to drum up business. And we find that oftentimes that can be a little wasteful, especially as the cost of the print brochure goes up, the cost of mailing goes up, bulk rates are going up. So we recommend trying to be a little more targeted in your approach. And so a carrier route is a little smaller than a zip code. So you can be a little more targeted in it. And so you basically select what carrier routes you want to mail to, and just like you would blanket a zip code, you're going to blanket a carrier route, which is generally the size of sort of like a neighborhood. But the hardest part about that is deciding which carrier routes you want to target. And that's where we sort of come in. And part of what our tool can do is identify which carrier routes your registrations come from. So what we do is our tool, we quarterly load in data from the US Postal Service that includes every registered address in the United States. And then we'll take your data file with your registrations and the addresses in there and run them against that database. And we can see, first off, how many of your addresses are what the US Postal Service considers real addresses. So oftentimes somebody may have entered in an address incorrectly, or something was misspelled, or a zip code is put in incorrectly, it doesn't match up with the address itself. So we can give you a percentage of what of your addresses are classifying, basically are being identified by the Postal Service as a real address. And if that number is really low, we can provide you a list of all the ones that aren't classifying, so you can go back and fix your records to make sure. Because anytime you have a non-classified address and you're mailing to it for every brochure, there's a chance that that's going undelivered, and they're just gonna, it's not a real address, so it just doesn't get delivered, and either comes back to you or just gets piled somewhere and you'll never see it again, depending on what sort of mail service you're requesting. So we can tell you which will match up and which won't with the US Postal Service. And then, like I said, we can identify which carrier routes all your registrations came from. And our view with carrier routes is that the carrier routes that are currently the most respondent for you, the ones that are generating the most registrations, are your best carrier routes. And it can be a little not intuitive, because people can think that, we should be going after the carrier routes that provide the least registrations right now, because there's all these people there that probably don't know about us or whatnot. But we feel that the carrier routes that are generating your most business currently, there's something about the people in that area, because the carrier route's small enough to have, that everyone living there might have a pretty similar demographic profile, since it's a neighborhood. If you think about a neighborhood, it's usually people are sort of in a similar socioeconomic profile, or maybe it's an area where most people have children, or something like that. So there's something about these carrier routes, the ones that are doing well for you, that your programming appeals to. So our thought is there's plenty of other people on those carrier routes that haven't taken a class with you for some reason. Maybe it's they need another push to get in the door. Maybe they aren't getting the brochure, or they just don't know about you. So we feel like saturating those carrier routes that are already doing well gives you the best percentage to succeed with sort of a mass mailing. So our ability to identify these routes for you can be really helpful. So part of this report is we are going to identify, routes that you potentially can mail to, and we'll rank them for you. And the 80-20 principle we talked about really holds truth here. We always find that, generally between 10 and 20% of the total carrier routes that registrations come from for you generate 80% of your business. So you can, reach the people, that 80% by sending out, far fewer brochures than mailing to a full zip code. So this can all be a little complicated, and I would be happy to discuss it with anybody one-on-one if you submit a request to info@learn.org, and we can talk about how to make carrier routes work for you and how to generate a good report that can be helpful to you. But sort of here's a look at the spreadsheet you would be getting back. Or in column A there, that is the ID of the carrier route, where the first 5 digits are just the zip code. Then there's a letter that signifies city or rural, which usually means rural is somebody who the mail carrier is driving, and city they're on foot. And then the 3 digits at the end is the carrier route number. So if you look at line 2 here, that's this made up individual here. This is their best route, and you can see the amount that shows that over the 2-year period of time, almost $54,000 were generated just from that carrier route, and 46 registrations came from it. So that's a very respondent route. So we would recommend mailing to it. And then the column C there, the residential count, is a rough estimate of from our data from the U.S. Postal Service of how many households there are on that route. So it would take 688 brochures to saturate that route. So we'll give you a recommendation of the best carrier routes, but sometimes maybe you can't afford to mail to that many carrier routes. But this list is ranked by registration, and you can also resort by amount, which is revenue if you'd like. And essentially, we just recommend walking down the list and adding up that residential count till you reach the number of brochures you can commit to mailing to carrier routes or to any sort of mass mailing. And then you take those the route numbers from column A, give them to your mailing house or your printer, whoever handles your mass mailing lists. They take that number and buy the list of addresses associated with that carrier route, and then which would be roughly 688, and then you mail to those. So we find it's a great way to get your brochures into people's hands in a more targeted manner, which will increase your response rate. So you'll get more registrations per brochure, which in essence will lead to more registrations, or you could reduce the number of brochures mailed, which would obviously lead to a savings in printing and mailing. So the next aspect to the segmentation report is we'll provide you your repeat rate and lifetime customer value. These are LERN core metrics. If you've ever taken any of our trainings or institutes or gone to our conference and gone to certain sessions there, we do harp on repeat rate as a really important metric. And essentially what it is it's like if let's say you're looking at 2 years of data and you break it up into the two individual years, we're looking at how many people who took a class that first year came back again and took a class in the second year. And that percentage is the repeat rate. So what percentage of people repeated from 1 year to the next? And we find this to be really important because through a lot of research we've done, we found that it is actually 6 times easier or 6 times less expensive to get a customer to come back than it is to find a new customer. And this is all sort of based on response rates of people getting brochures who are repeating customers versus new customers. So if it's so much easier to get somebody to repeat, it's really important to have a good repeat rate. So our tool will take a look at your registrations and then identify who has repeated. So we'll give you a percentage back to say, all right, your repeat rate is 10%, in which that would you'd think that would be low because our industry standard is generally 30 to 50%. So if it's low, you could think, well, why aren't people repeating? Or you can come back and we can tell you have a 60% repeat rate, which is great. So what are we doing that's causing them to come back? So, knowing that repeat rate is really important. And like I spoke about before, doing sort of a historical thing and seeing, how it fluctuates year to year can be really useful. Then the other metric is lifetime customer value, and that is using basically your average course fee, so how much on average somebody pays for a class, and then using your repeat rate to sort of extrapolate that out. We can give you a value on a lifetime customer value. How much on average does a customer spend with you over their lifetime or their time with you? And so that's another one to, it's interesting to know, but then also interesting to monitor year to year. So that comes, our tool will generate that for you and be in the report. We also can give you your primary market segments, which are, used for marketing. And LERN preaches that each program generally has 7 primary market segments. It's sort of the type of person taking classes with you. So an example of a market segment is female baby boomers interested in arts class. So it's arts classes. So it's usually demographics by your categories. So we could tell you, 70% of your registrations are female baby boomers taking arts classes. And then we'll give you your top 7. And most people have a pretty decent idea of what their primary market segments are, but it's always interesting to see them come from somebody, if I generate them for you myself, I don't really know anything about your program, so I have no real preconceived notions. So I'm just telling you what the data says. So it's also interesting to sort of look at it after you, in your mind, feel like, oh, these are the type of people we want to serve, but then you can really see on paper, all right, well, these are the people who are registering. Does that sort of match up? And so these, you can decide, well, all right, well, these top 4 segments are all female and they're all in this age bracket, looking at this type of programming. So, that could help make decisions with the type of programming you're offering in the future, new programming, the way you design your brochure, the way you design your marketing campaigns and whatnot. So it can be really useful information to have to make informed decisions. We also provide a next course report, which was, we actually created a tool that takes a look at your students and can predict what a logical next course for them would be. And the way it's done is it looks at, let's say, student X, and they took ballroom dancing. And then it looks at the other 10 people who took ballroom dancing and sees if there was a trend of what they took next. So if like 7 of those 10 people went on to take salsa dancing, the tool will then say a logical next class for student X is salsa dancing, and our percent certainty is this. So it's an interesting thing to look at, and you can sort it by, by people, by a class. You can sort it by percent certainty or whatnot. And so you can use that to specifically market to people and sort of predict what the next class they might want to take is. And these classes they're predicting are your classes. So, you have them already. So it's, it's an interesting way to do it. So that's included. And then we also include a best customers list. And the way we consider best customers at LERN, there's sort of, 2 aspects to it. It's amount spent and customer frequency. So we're looking at people who have registered somewhat recently and have spent a decent amount of money. And then we can create a list based on those parameters. And, basically where we start is I would start at, okay, we're going to look at people who have taken 2 classes over this period of time and spent more than the average student. Because we can generate a number that, okay, on average, a student spends, over this 2 years period of span, spends $300 with you. So we're going to take people who have taken 2 or more classes and spent over $300, and I'll create a list like that. And if that list is too long, then maybe we change the parameters and say students who have taken 3 or more classes and spent more than the average. So at that point, we can create a list, and that list is also sortable as well. So you can take a look at who your best customers are. You can have, this can be a specific mailing list. If you include the students' emails when you submit your data, it can also be an email list. So you can have, import those into your email tool and use, this can be your best customers list. You can offer them certain deals maybe you don't offer other people. You can give them special incentives or whatever, because everyone enjoys feeling special. So it's a good way to sort of identify who these best customers are. And so basically whoa, slide didn't come out great there. But essentially, if you want to request this service, send a request to info@learn.org, and we'll send you a copy of these things that we need. And essentially, we just need your registration data in a spreadsheet, either a CSV file or a Excel spreadsheet, where each line of data represents a registration, not just a student. So if one student took 5 classes over the period of your data, they would have 5 separate lines of data. So we're looking at it by registration, not necessarily just one line for each student. And for each registration, we want a first name or last name. If you don't want to submit names and have a student ID number, that's fine as well. Just a way for us to identify uniquely those students. And then we want their address so we can classify with the carrier routes. We want the name of the class they registered, the registration date, and I don't know why it's kind of got cut off here, but the registration amount as well. So the date will help us determine repeat rate and when people signed up for stuff, and the amount we can use to see how much revenue came in, and like we were just showing before, everything broken down by revenue. And then, those are sort of the required things, but we also would encourage you to include the category and or subcategory of the class, and any demographic information you collect, being, birth year, gender, and then also, like I said, if you include the email, we can give you best customers lists and whatnot with the email already on it, so you can just upload them into your email tool. And just, all data is kept in-house and confidential. We don't share any of it with anybody, and it's just for your own use. So that's what we need. It is a little complicated, but feel free to reach out to us at info@learn.org, and we'll walk you through the process and can work with you to extract the data as well. And if you, like I said, if there's certain things you don't collect, feel free to still reach out, and I can tell you what aspects of the report we might not be able to give you because of limited data. We can certainly give you some stuff. So we're going to look at a couple quick success stories from using the market segmentation report. This is Metro Continuing Education in Edmonton, Alberta in Canada. And from their report, they identified that their students were taking a ton of cooking classes. It really was it made up the, over 12% of their total registrations, which was much higher than any other singular type of class. So they made an effort, they made a decision at that point to center their marketing efforts on these cooking classes. So they used cooking images for all the brochures for an entire year. They did most of their marketing campaigns with cooking in mind. They increased the number of cooking classes they were offering. And just by being aware of that, that was, the trend at their school and what was popular, they were able to, saw enrollments increase 22% and revenue increased 21% the year after they sort of made those changes. So, like we sort of preach, making these data-driven decisions, you can move towards the logical outcomes you hope for, and you're making a lot better decisions when you're making them based on your past data than sort of a hunch or whatnot. So Metro, used the data, went forward and, adjusted their programming and whatnot based on that data, and they were really successful with it. Another success story was Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, and they used the carrier route section of the report, where they sort of came to us wanting to find a way to reduce their marketing costs and yet keep registrations, keep them where they are or possibly increase them, which, at first glance seems like a crazy idea. Reduce the amount you're spending, yet increase registrations. But we recommended that, they look into carrier routes, and we did the segmentation analysis, told them their best routes, which ones to mail to. And then, so they went ahead and were able to reduce the number of brochures they mailed for, from 65,000 to 15,000 for each brochure. And they saw the response rate increase from 6% to 30%, which is 30% is a crazy, really good response rate. And that's sort of like how many brochures it takes to get a registration. So if you think about it's sort of like the brochure to participant ratio. If you have a 50-to-1 ratio, that would be, it takes you 50 brochures mailed to generate one registration, and that would sort of equal 5%. So they were able to see a significant increase in the response rate, which then led to registrations increasing by more than 15% while they reduced their costs significantly. So we feel that was a pretty good success story on how to use carrier routes and reduce your costs by being more targeted and yet increase revenue. So another aspect to what we offer members is you're entitled to 4 one-on-one consulting hours every year. And basically what you want to do with that is, think of a subject you'd like to talk to somebody about, an industry expert. Submit that request, what you're, be as specific as you can about what you're looking for to info@learn.org. And then I am happy to find somebody who has expertise in that area for you to sit down and have a conversation with. This could be, a staff member who knows a lot about a certain thing. It could be one of our consultants who has experience in that area. It could be a conference presenter, and it possibly could be another member we could go to and ask and say, do you have experience using this computer program or this, anything like that, and then we can facilitate that for you guys to have a discussion. So, really anything you in the industry you are, interested in talking about, we can set that up for you. And so just as an example, some recently requested topics are, staffing structure, brochure distribution, like we just talked about, refund policies, programming issues, pricing analysis, how should I price? So come to us with these questions, and then we can put you in touch with somebody who can definitely help you out with it. So that's sort of one-on-one consulting over the phone or webinar. We've done webinars with an entire staff if you're interested, where you're all on the webinar with whoever we put you in touch with, and they can do sort of a training of your entire staff. But then there's also the ability to just ask more, less involved questions through info@learn.org. So you can type in a question, anything from what are, like, do you find are the most popular refund policies, or something like, I've been looking on your website, but I can't find anything on let's say refund policies. And we can help you out and send it to you, attach it and mail it back to you, or give you a short answer. And that may lead into further consulting, or just a quick answer, maybe what you need. But all you have to do is submit a question to info@learn.org, and Tammy will send it on over to me, and I can either answer for you or find somebody who can answer that question for you. So and feel free to send in any questions you have. We also, as a member benefit, offer free webinars to members. We offer a few different types of webinars. Some are, like this one here is free to everybody. We have ones that are free to members and paid for non-members. And then there are ones that we have to charge everybody for, but the member price is significantly lower than the non-member price. So as a member, you get free webinars and you get discounts on other paid webinars. For instance, a lot of the free ones are $149 for a non-member, so you gain a lot of value right there. We try to cover, over the course of the year, a wide range of topics that hit on issues that apply to lots of different constituencies. So these are topics that we hope have mass appeal and hopefully serve what you're looking for. If you have any good ideas on webinars, feel free to submit them to info@learn.org, and we keep sort of a running list of what people are interested in learning about. Also, any webinar that's free to members, after the fact, it's available on demand in the LERN Club, which is the member section of our website, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so if you miss it, or you can't make it, or something came up, you can always watch it on demand at a later time. And right now there's tons of on-demand webinars in the LERN Club that you can watch at your own pace. So just as a push here, the next free member webinar is this coming Monday, and it's called Managing Your Program Mix with Julie Coates, our Senior Vice President for Information Services. And it's about your programming mix, when classes should be rested, when it should be cut, what she's seen as the programming mix in the industry right now, what types of classes are people offering, that sort of stuff. And this is it's free to all members, and if you're a non-member, you can take it, but it's $149. So it's pretty good value as a member. So if you want to take this, you can register on our website. If you have any questions about registering, send it to info@learn.org, and we can get you registered for the webinar. We already have a pretty good crew signed up for this one, so it seems like a popular topic. So we just mentioned the LERN Club, and we recently redid our website. The new version got rolled out early last fall. And so we redid both the public-facing side, but we have a members area called the LERN Club. And as a member, when you sign up for a membership, you're given a username and login for our website, and you can log in and access this LERN Club section. And so basically we have hundreds of archived articles and new articles going up pretty regularly there too. So you see at that front page, there's some articles, but you can also click on across the top, it says LERN Reports, and there's a ton of different articles there grouped into categories. You sort of check on the category you're looking for, you can find some articles that way, you can download them, you can read them online, whatever you'd like. We also have all the webinars mixed in there too. So, you can look at those by topic, or you can just look at all the webinars in general and see which, if anything is appealing to you or something you'd like to learn. We also have message discussion boards now, which is sort of a new feature. They're slowly catching on. We're trying to push more and more people there. But you can go in there and ask questions of staff members or of other members. It's sort of like a Reddit style forum if you've done any stuff on Reddit. And so basically you're asking questions, anyone can respond, anyone can weigh in, you can weigh in on anyone else's question. So our hope is to sort of create sort of an organic area where people can have discussions. We're also trying to promote, a discussion at least one a month. We just recently did one on collecting gender information, and if people thought that was still a viable thing, if people did collect it, or what, if some people didn't and why they didn't. And we also got into, are people just collecting male and female, or is there sort of a non-binary option or an other option? And people's experience with that. So it was sort of a very interesting discussion from both angles, and so it was interesting to participate in and read. And you can still go in there and read about the discussion now, but so we're going to attempt to bring up topics like that every month that people can start weighing in on. And so through here, you can also look at our blogs, the regular Learn Updates blog, the 9-Shift blog. If you've ever been to any of our conferences, Bill does a 9-Shift presentation. There's also access to a few other tools. I don't really have time to get too in depth in right now, but there's a tool for contract training planning where you input some data and you can make some contract training decisions there. So feel free to check that out. That's free. There's a digital brochure tool which allows you to upload a digital file of your brochure and sort of use it as a flip book that you can link to on your website. There's a program planner tool which you can upload a lot of your data into, and it will sort of help you, it'll make recommendations and help you decide on your programming mix for like the next catalog or something, trying to decide which courses to offer. This can sort of give you an insight by using your own data as to what to offer. Then there's a promotions tracking tool, which is essentially sort of a souped up Google Calendar that allows you to put all your promotions in one calendar, meaning your print promotion campaign, like your brochure or any specialized print stuff, your digital marketing campaign, social media campaigns. It's a way to sort of track it all and look at it in one place. It also allows you to assign ownership to the different tasks, and it will email the people who you've assigned the ownership to. And it'll also allow you to check off things, or whoever finishes them, check them off, so you can sort of take an overall look at the calendar and see what hasn't been done and what has been done and whatnot. So it can be a helpful tool, and members use it. So that is accessible under the productivity tools in the LERN Club. We also do polls, so you can sort of answer a quick poll and see how everyone else is answering it. So there's lots of fun stuff going on in the LERN Club. Feel free to get in there and check it out. And we try to update stuff, so get in there regularly and see what the new articles are and whatnot. And if you have trouble logging in or can't log in, or you don't remember your password and log in, just email Tammy at info@learn.org and let her know who you are and your organization, and she can look up that password and log it for you or reset it for you. We also have a partnership with UGotClass, which is an online class and certificate program developed by us at LERN, and we offer high quality online classes and certificates that you can offer through your brochure on your website. Offer them as your own online courses, and all they do is they either register through you, or you can direct the registrations to us. And people get put in the class, and we have the instructors all set, the class is run, and there's a split in the revenue, whereas we keep some and you keep some. And the work on your end is very minimal. It's just like a lot of online class vendors, similar thing, but we really stand by the quality of these programs. And as a LERN member, you get a better split than a non-member. So if you're going to offer these classes, it really makes sense to be a member because you're going to get a higher percentage of the revenue, 50%, than as a non-member gets. So a lot of LERN members have used UGotClass online classes to sort of supplement gaps in their programming. Maybe there's a class that you want to offer, but you can't find an instructor. Maybe we have an online version of it you can try. Or you've got a brochure coming out and you're 5 classes short. You've got room, so maybe you can put in a few descriptions of online classes. So it's an easy way to sort of supplement your programming and create a new revenue stream that has pretty low overhead for the program. And so if you have any questions about this, again, info@learn.org, and your question will be passed on to probably to Leslie, who runs UGotClass, and she will be happy to answer any questions you may have and get you set up. There's also a lot of discounts offered as a member, and I don't know where the top of that text went, but so as a member, you're entitled to discounts on basically anything we offer, essentially. So if we're doing institutes in person or online, you get a lower price as a member. The annual conference itself, it's $200 less as a member than as a non-member. So if you're going to the conference, especially if your program's sending multiple people, since so when you sign up for a LERN membership, you get 6 members, essentially 6 people that get a login and whatnot. So all 6 of those people could get, if you sent them all, if you sent that many people, they would each get a $200 discount. And the way our pricing works also is we have a 3rd person free option. So if you send 3 people, 2 of them get the member price, which is $200 less, and the 3rd person's free. And just as a little plug, so we're coming to Portland this November. It's a really cool city, and we're gonna have a ton of new sessions, a lot of cool stuff going on. We have been taking a lot of registrations. It's been, we've seen a really great response to this area and to what we're offering this year, so it's been great. But just as a heads up, the early bird deadline for registration is August 1st. So if you're on the fence and you're thinking about trying to save some money registering, we recommend doing it before August 1st, and the prices go up a little bit after that. But there's always a member and non-member price. So as a member, you always will save. And you can also save some money on any sort of premium services we offer, which, like we talked about before, the social media and digital marketing analysis. It's a lower member price for that. Page analysis, which looks at your brochure and your data together and seeing if there's any trends as to where a class is listed on the page and how, if certain spots in your catalog are more responsive than others, and we can sort of identify that by looking at your data with your brochure at the same time. And we also offer a digital library, which if you'd like to learn more about it, we do have a whole nother free webinar you can watch on demand about it. But this is a library that has sort of our bigger ticket publications that are the longer publications, white papers and stuff. And for you pay a yearly fee, and you can go in there, read anything you want, watch any webinars that are paid webinars are in there for free for digital library members. You can download anything you want to your computer. You can print it out. A lot of stuff is formatted for e-readers, so you can put it on your Kindle or your iPad if you'd like. So that's a new premium service we started offering in the last few years. So if you're interested in that, send in a request to info@learn.org, and we can talk to you about it a little more, because you probably don't have time to get too in-depth into it right now. And we can also send you a link to the archived webinar that sort of walks you through it. You can really get a feel for it. So basically anything that we offer as a member, you're going to get it less than somebody who's a non-member. And so I wanted to make sure we left time for questions here. So feel free to type your questions into the question pane, and Tammy will read them out to me. I'll answer them. And if you have any more in-depth questions or want to learn more about any of these services and start taking advantage of them, send a request to info@learn.org with any questions you have, or let us know you'd like to talk to somebody on the phone, and we can make that happen. But as we say here, remember to lean on LERN, and we're here to help you. And we've been in the industry for a long time and worked with a lot of members, so we have a lot of we've seen a lot, so we can help with most issues. And if it's something we're having trouble with, we'll find somebody who knows it that can help you with it. So if Tammy wants to read out some questions, I would be happy to give it a shot at answering them.
Thank you, Brendan. We do have a few questions. The first question is regarding the reports, the segmentation report, about how long does it typically take to get the reports back?
So the segmentation report, I would say a lot of it depends on how many we have in at the moment. They sort of go into a queue, but it would generally be 2 to 3 weeks, but usually less. I'd like to give like some cushion just in case. So you want to give yourself a little cushion, but usually less than that. But on average, I'd say 1 to 2 weeks. And if it is a rush or something's come up, let me know and we can see what we can do for working it in ahead and making sure we get it back to you when you need it. But definitely give yourself a little buffer there. But a few weeks is generally the time it takes.
Thank you. The next question is the market segmentation report included in the membership fee, or is it an additional cost?
No, that is included in the fee. It's completely free. We're happy to work with you to figure out how to get the data to us, and then you just get it in and you get the report back. It is completely included, and then if you want to use some of your consulting hours after to talk about the report and talk about how you might go forward using some aspects to it, that's included too. So so it's something as a member, if you have access to your data, I would definitely highly recommend taking advantage of it, because if anything else, it just sort of gives you another look into your programming information and data, and you can make decisions with it going forward. And it's really interesting information, and pretty much anyone who has it done finds some value in it. And some people, like the examples we gave, have seen great value and used it to really make a lot more money and save money in aspects too.
Great. Thank you, Beth, for that question. And everything that Brendan has talked about today, brochure critiques, member webinars, consulting, website critique, the different reports that he can provide you, all of that is already paid for in your membership fees. A lot of members don't seem to be clear on that. We want to make sure you know that you can request these reports once a year. And we have a sample data set to show you how you should format your data and what we're looking for. And I think, Brendan, if I'm not mistaken, the other good thing about these reports is it can also point them in the right direction of what kind of data they should be collecting if they're not collecting everything we're looking for.
Right, definitely, yeah. And if you have questions on what data you should be collecting, or want to talk to somebody about what the value of collecting certain pieces of data is, we can definitely do some consulting on that. And right, like we said, if there's certain things you aren't collecting, we can still create a report for you, and we can talk to you about why you might want to collect certain pieces of data going forward. And people have used the report for many different reasons and found value in a lot of ways. And one thing I didn't even mention before is if we picked carrier routes for you, we decided these are the ones we're going to go with. You went with it, you mailed to them. After that term is over, you can send in just the registrations from that term, and then we can go back, run it through again, and take a look at how many, what percentage of your registrations came from those carrier routes you paid for, and see if you did get a good return on investment. So not only can we provide you the carrier routes to target, but we can also sort of go back and see if we can validate the what you spent and if it worked, or if we should adjust that plan going forward.
And Brendan mentioned that your data is secure. We don't share it. We don't use it for anything except to provide you with reports. And we also have a privacy policy statement that we can provide to you from LERN that depicts that we don't use your data for anything. So please don't let that stop you. I can provide that to you anytime. So that's all the questions that we have for today, Brendan.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And like I said, any other questions, info@learn.org. We can, help you out there. And if you'd like to request any of these services we talked about, you can do that in the same fashion. And we hope we get a lot of requests. And hopefully you guys found some value in the membership that we can help you out with going forward. And, thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.